Cardinals were responsible this offseason, adding several names into the competition for their offensive line. But as we continue our position group preview throughout the course of the 2024 offseason en route to training camp. And the biggest departure, of course, DJ Humphries being released by the team following his season-ending knee injury last December. Bo, Cardinals are looking to replace their longtime offensive tackle and did so. We broke it on this show back in March. Jonah Williams joined the fold out of Cincinnati as he and Paris Johnson Jr. are going to be the bookend tackles. But the biggest point of emphasis was Jonah Williams, what position will he play? The Cardinals eventually said, we're going to put our best player at the most important position, that be Paris Johnson Jr., Bo, at left tackle.
Yeah, the future's now. They didn't want to delay it any longer, and the DJ Humphries injury expedited that, and it was something that Paris Johnson Jr. wanted. Kind of flew under the radar and just kind of exchanged text messages with the powers that be. Paris didn't reveal who it was, but it was just simply, hey, can you play left tackle? And he was just like, yeah, sure. And he's ready to take that jump, and it's a position that he thrived at Ohio State and catapulted himself up draft boards and was the first tackle off the board. And it's exciting to think about in year 2 of a potential 5-year rookie deal that he's going to be protecting Kyler Murray's blind side going forward. You can kind of set it, forget it. And if he continues to trend in the right direction, and I'm sure he'll probably be even more comfortable than he was on the right side, which was a brand new position to him. He played right guard, but never right tackle. He played every snap at. You got to be really encouraged about what the future of that position is going to be. And there shouldn't be, any drop off at all, if any, from, DJ Humphries, who held that position down pretty consistently through his 9 years with the organization. And then Jonah Williams bringing the experience from Cincinnati. Like, you got to like those bookends. And like, I like that Paris Johnson Jr. remains on the offensive line, obviously, but the continuity that provides, it's him, it's Will Hernandez, Yelda Froholt as holdovers from last year's group that was so consistent.
Yeah, let's talk about Jonah Williams specifically. I do want to make a quick note that a lot of people thought, okay, his best natural position is left tackle. And I was in that group. I know he fought to stay at left tackle in Cincinnati. But I just feel like, and we've touched on this, Jonah Williams and what they're going to ask him to do, and Kyler Murray's ability to extend the play and the emphasis put on the run game, I just think this offense works better for what Jonah Williams is at this stage in his career, which, by the way, is somebody that still in his mid-20s. This is his second contract. It's a 2-year deal. I would probably call it a modest 2-year deal. And he's probably thinking, okay, if I play well for this team this year, there's a chance that I could double down, get a pay raise in the next offseason. And then going back to Paris Johnson Jr., we mentioned it. Put your best player at your best position. You said it. The future is now. I think we see the best left tackle season from a Cardinal 20 years, 25 years. I think that Paris Johnson Jr. has that ability, and that's no disrespect to DJ Humphries, but it always felt like
Jared Valdir was pretty dang good.
Yeah, the 2014 season was good. I just feel like the upside with Paris, the jump that we always talk about, the year 2 pop year. Why not Paris Johnson Jr.? Why can't he put up 80, 85, 90 grades for PFF? So I'm excited to watch that. But the real intrigue comes, you mentioned it, with the interior offensive line. Yeah. So you've got Yelda Froholt and you've got Will Hernandez coming back. They're both in contract years, so you would assume they're motivated to compete. The left guard position is up for grabs in training camp. Jonathan Gannon will say as much. Right now, I think you would have to task the favorite as the veteran Evan Brown coming over from Seattle, just based on both pure experience, even though guys like the third rounder out of Illinois, Isaiah Adams, has the upside of, okay, this guy can be hopefully a 5-year starter for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Somebody that projects to kind of maybe fill the role down the line, was playing tackle out of necessity for Illinois last year. And we were talking to, his offensive play caller that even admitted that, they probably put him in a position that was for the team more so than to boost Adams' draft stock. And he shined at the Senior Bowl in Mobile and was able to remain as a day 2 pick for the Cardinals. But is he ready to start at the NFL level? And I think that the Arizona Cardinals have a bit of a bridge in Evan Brown, and somebody who's endeared himself to this tight-knit group from the jump, and he's already having some legendary workouts in the weight room and Yelda Froholt jokes, that it pisses him off that, Evan Brown is so strong and, he has the experience. And, I was talking to Brandon Thorne, who I think is maybe the leading authority as far as offensive line play on the social streets and just in today's game. He wasn't too keen on Evan Brown. He liked him more as a backup center, but I think that the Arizona Cardinals view him very differently and would be very comfortable with him starting the season as their starting left guard. But if Isaiah Adams pushes Brown for the position, that's just a good problem to have for the Cardinals.
Yeah, Alpha Male JV in the chat. I think Isaiah Adams will start at left guard, and I don't think it will be an indictment of Brown because we know what he can do and what he can't do. I think it's, hey, this kid from Champaign, Illinois is ahead of schedule. Let's throw him in there. And the Cardinals have expectations, lofty expectations for their offensive line. But, I mean, you've got 4 veterans up front that have all done this at a high level at one time or another. Most of them, outside of Froholt, Will Hernandez, Jonah Williams, and Paris Johnson Jr. were all top 50 picks. Most of them were first-round picks. It's okay to insert a rookie at guard. You're allowed to do that and let him learn on the fly. So I would have no issue with him winning this job outright. I just feel like what we've heard from Cardinal players on the offensive line is the countless praise for Evan Brown. I think, didn't Will Hernandez or somebody recently call him the strongest player on the team or the strongest offensive lineman? Like, say what you want. There's a lot of strong guys up front for the Cardinals. Like, that means something.
Well, it's one of the things that people pump up about Isaiah Adams. It's like, he's a strong kid. It's like, well, what we're hearing is Evan Brown's the strongest guy on the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Like,
I also just, I think you're at this position too. Like, this is not Vance Joseph with young defenders where you worry about flubbing up their development. I don't know if outside of Jonathan Gannon, there's a position group I trust more with a coach and a unit than the offensive line and what took place last year with the development of Paris, taking a journeyman, for lack of a better term, at Yelda Froholt, elevating him to what he became last year. So if they want to do the same thing and double down with, yes, Jonah Williams and now Isaiah Adams or Evan Brown, like, I'm not going to scoff at that. I feel like, okay, you have put together a top 5 running team, a team that I thought very respectable pass protection for the likes of Joshua Dobbs for most of the season, then Kyler Murray. You get a bunch of slack from this fan base. Like, I do this offensive line is not a liability, yes, because of the personnel, but because of the coaching that they're receiving. We have not had a consistent coaching job up front since Bruce Arians coached, frankly.
No, you have to really love what, Clayton Adams did in his first season and what he continues to do. And I think we're going to look back at this at this time as this offensive line being a group in transition, as much as we really like the characters involved, like what Yelda Froholt has been able to do and take hold of an opportunity, and Will Hernandez to have a career resurgence after kind of being tabbed the bust as a second rounder out of UTEP going to the Giants. And you just figured out that the Giants are a poverty franchise and they can't develop the offensive line, right? And Froholt was just kind of a guy biding his time in Cleveland for his opportunity coming out of the SEC at Arkansas. And then these other pieces like Isaiah Adams, who could be a future starter, and Christian Jones, who was a victim of such a deep tackle draft class, falling in the 5th round out of Texas. Could he be a future starter on the right side? Once Jonah Williams' time is done here. A versatile player, depending on when he can get back from the ACL injury, and Jonathan Gaines the second. Some really intriguing pieces. Marquise Hayes, I saw his name mentioned, a guy that was a Keim draft pick, has been holding on, has been a practice squad primarily, had a knee injury his rookie season. But I think that they have pieces, and I was talking to Sam Monson about this, for this group. He said this, if they're average, the Arizona Cardinals offense is going to be just fine. Like, if they have just an average offensive line season performance, then with all the weapons and what Kyler Murray can do, this offense can easily be a problem for the rest of the league.
Go ahead.
But I think, like, with this a group being in transition and not being able to invest as much as they want to, and the way that Monty Ossenfort wants to draft going forward, and like he did in his first year, taking Paris Johnson 6th overall, they're only going to add more blue chip talent to this group that's already well coached. And you're going to see, like with the entire roster, more, I guess, better players and more talented players make their way onto this offensive line. And it's not going to just be, Paris Johnson Jr. as, a foundational piece on this O-line. It's going to be full of them. I think it's going to resemble like what we've seen in Philadelphia for the last couple of years, just where it's just not it's a group that's going to be topped about in the top 10, top 5 of the league, and going to be a force, each and every Sunday.
Well, I mean, like, look at what this team has done in the first round of the NFL draft. There's one outlier, and we talked about him in the first segment, that plays receiver. That was a generational prospect. Outside of that, what'd they do with the other 2 first-round picks? They took 2 line of scrimmage players. That's going to be the MO for this team. Defensive line, offensive line, pass rusher, tackle, maybe a late first-round center guard at some point. But you're right. To speak on Sam Monson's point, I thought the offensive line was maybe average to above average last year at times. And I think a lot of us feel like if they don't build off what they did last year, it would be a disappointment. So I 100% echo those comments from Sam. And I think, again, like, I put aside the rankings for this group in particular, because if you don't watch the Cardinals week in and week out, you have no idea how important and impressive this offensive line was over the course of 17 games last year. They pushed around Dallas. They pushed around Pittsburgh. They pushed around Philadelphia. They could run the ball on anybody when they chose to. They put up 200 yards rushing against the Niners late in the season. They just didn't have their quarterback for most of the year. So that's why the team suffered. But yeah, I think you're going to be looking at an offensive line, Bo, to echo your comments, where every other year you're going to get a top first or second offensive lineman coming out of the draft, coming into this unit, in part because, listen, they have had a renaissance of skill players. If things project as we hope this fall, well, you've got your top 2, maybe top 3 receivers in-house. You've got a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. You've got your heir apparent to James Conner and Trey Benson. Like, they're not going to need to have an influx of skill players every draft. And then, outside of what you want to supplement defensively, like, the next phase is, let's get a tackle to replace Jonah Williams at some point. Oh yeah, let's get a developmental interior offensive lineman. So it is probably, outside of the skill players we talked about earlier this week, probably the most promising group heading into this year, where you're like, that's the strength of the team. That's what they're going to lean on every Sunday.
They lean on their strengths as an offensive line, where it's the run blocking, right? And, whether it's Brandon Thorne or whether it's Sam Monson, and they see, and they're just looking at it from a straight, grading standpoint, that they aren't as well versed in the pass pro, that they will lean on the run game to set themselves up for more successful looks, or, better looks at passing, to where they don't have to deal with people breathing down Kyler Murray's neck, play in and play out, like, probably the former coaching staff would do. But I think where their strength is, no doubt about it, in being a run grading offensive line. And that's fine. And I think as they're in transition, as they load up on talent in that group, that if they want to be this, bully in the run game, then start there. And then, like, if you want to add more passing plays as you feel more comfortable with your personnel, then do it.